One of the misperceptions about oil and gas exploration is that it's an environmentally heavy activity. Well, in fact, Alan knows he probably did some of this. It's not really. It's particularly offshore. What we're talking about is pulling sensors behind a ship and making acoustic measurements of the subsurface. So we can actually image what's in the subsurface by making non-intrusive measurements. And the technology has advanced to the point where we make quite detailed and high-resolution measurements through 5 miles of water and through 7 miles of rock. I'm going to give you an example. There was an oil field developed off the east coast of England in a very sensitive, environmentally sensitive area, and it was developed entirely from shore. So the derricks were set up on the shore. They were disguised, so they didn't look like, in Long Beach today, there's a development offshore Long Beach that if you looked out there, you'd see palm trees. It's actually, painted signs on derricks, so it doesn't look like derricks, and people didn't like to see that. But in England, they did the same thing, and then they actually drilled from shore under the seabed and tapped into that oil field, which was a couple miles offshore. There's been something on the order of 1 million wells drilled in the U.S.
That's since the beginning?
Since the beginning. So we kind of know how to do it. I think it's important to start any talk about energy with a slide like this, because a lot of people, if you just read the newspaper, I don't know how many people would say, as Alan mentioned, that fossil fuels or geofuels, whatever you want to call them, make up 80% of the energy we use today. And this is the U.S. plot, by the way. And so I think it's important to kind of just look at this just for a second. So the bottom curve is oil, and we're about where those numbers are in the middle. The next set obviously is a forecast. This forecast actually comes from the U.S. government, the forecasting agency, the EIA, and that's their forecast at 2030. Okay, so that says that today the basic energy we use, 40% of that comes from oil. If you put them all in the same units, right? 40% comes from oil, 23% comes from natural gas. The continental shelf is off limits. 15% is what all the things you hear about in the Gulf of Mexico and everywhere else, that's 15% of the continental shelf that's available, okay? And obviously, more investment domestically, more access domestically means more taxes are paid, more jobs domestically, right? And they're not insignificant numbers, they're big numbers.